The Manhattan DA witch hunt against me has been postponed because everyone realizes that there was no case because I did nothing wrong. It's a witch hunt. It's an attack by my political opponents in Washington, D.C.
Former President Trump lashing out at Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg and Washington Democrats after Judge Juan Merchan postponed his sentencing in the case until after the presidential election. Here to react, George Washington University law professor and Fox News contributor Jonathan Turley. Professor, great to have you with us this morning. You know,
thank you, Will.
I think everyone has acknowledged, most objective, rational people have acknowledged the weakness of the initial conviction of Donald Trump. And then that was confirmed somewhat with the Supreme Court saying he has presidential immunity on so many aspects that would have ended up undermining the New York conviction. But do you think Judge Merchan, Professor, who I think has been fairly obstinate in not worrying about the law and pursuing what looks like a political case, do you think he was impacted by the political fallout should he have sentenced Donald Trump?
Well, I think so. He might actually have been sort of subconsciously or consciously aware that if he hit Trump with a jail sentence, he very well could have reelected him. I mean, every time the public saw what was happening in Manhattan, Trump went up in the polls. And I think Merchan knew that he could very well have proved the catalyst to reelect the president. This president has been fairly hostile towards Trump in all of his rulings. I was in that courtroom, and I was shocked by many of his rulings, which in my view were manifestly wrong. And also this sudden epiphany that we're in an election seems rather belated. You know, this is the same judge who refused to curtail his, in my view, unconstitutional gag order, kept the president in that courtroom during the campaign, and never indicated any concern over the fact that this was in the middle of a campaign.
Yeah, so by process of elimination, Professor, that's why I keep coming back to this. Like, he didn't care about true precedent or legal justification. He didn't care about the impact on an election when he thought it might help to the point of the gag order. The only thing that's changed now is I think he cared that it might help Donald Trump, actually, if he had sentenced him. Another political case, well, another case that touches on politics is Hunter Biden. And so now Hunter Biden has pled guilty to filing false tax returns. 2 counts, we can put up on the screen here, of felony tax evasion, 1 count of felony failure to pay, 4 counts of a misdemeanor failure to file, 2 counts of a misdemeanor. Now, Joe Biden, asked recently, by the way, Karine Jean-Pierre doubled down, tripled down, that there will be no pardon for Hunter Biden. Do you believe that?
Well, you know, is almost 2 years ago, I wrote a column saying that I thought there was a real chance that Joe Biden could withdraw from running for re-election and pardon his son on the way out and accept that this was the misuse of that pardon authority. That is still a real chance. By setting the calendar as it has been, this puts the decision right in the sweet spot for the Hunter Biden team, where they would want this decision to be made after the election, with weeks before the inauguration. That's when we've seen the greatest abuse of the pardon power occur. That's when Bill Clinton waited to the very last day to pardon his brother, which was just a manifestly improper act in the use of his authority. But it was a legal act. This is not, there's not a restriction on the pardon authority in this sense. So I think that the Hunter Biden team is probably hoping that this is still a real possibility. Also, if the judge hands down a particularly harsh sentence, it's going to increase the pressure on Joe Biden to reverse his promise. Remember, this is the one who said that the Lord Almighty would have to tell him to leave the race, and then he left the race.
Right. So how much stock do we put in that him saying he won't pardon Hunter Biden? By the way, on the sentencing, to your point, just as an interesting note, sentencing date is currently set at December 16th for Hunter Biden, leaving that 1-month window, 3-week window for a pardon right there from Joe Biden. We'll wait and see. Right. Jonathan Turley, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.